Hey guys! Welcome to another episode of Bible Q&A. Today we're discussing what did Daniel mean by the King of the North in his prophecy in Daniel chapter 11. The King of the North is God's vassal state. God is pretty darn powerful, according to numerous verses like Psalms chapter 95 verse 3, but he's kept some smaller gods around who do the dirty work for him. In fact, we read in Proverbs, "The Lord hath made all things for himself, yea, even the wicked for the day of evil." Proverbs chapter 16 verse 4. For example, when God wanted to punish Israel, he would send a powerful northern country, like Assyria or Babylon, to exile their nobles and conquer the country. That's why he called Nebuchadnezzar his servant in Jeremiah chapter 25 verse 9. "Behold, I will send and take all the families of the north, said the Lord, and Nebuchadrezzar the king of Babylon, my servant, and will bring them against this land, and against the inhabitants thereof, and against all these nations round about, and will utterly destroy them, and make them an astonishment, and a hissing, and perpetual desolations." Nebuchadnezzar was only acting on that pact God signed with him. And of course, like everything else in the Bible, the king of the north isn't just Assyria or Babylon. It also represents an entity God is using nowadays to weaken the church, so that his authority over it can be reestablished. In this video, we're going to learn how the king of the north is doing that. But first, some context. In ancient times, Israel's spiritual rulers would abandon their spiritual roles and chase after money. The metaphor of prostitution was used to explain this in Ezekiel chapter 16. They were spiritual virgins until they got into bed with political leaders. For example, the Pharisees took out Jesus to maintain peace for the Roman Empire, according to John chapter 11 verse 48, and Christianity became the state religion of the Roman Empire in AD 325, whereas the faith started out being the religion of no nation in particular. It was just a bunch of peasants and middle-class people meeting in each other's houses before that. Christian leaders then began to stamp out doctrines they didn't like Arianism, in accordance with Constantine's desire to create one faith for the whole empire. Naturally, God wanted to keep the spiritual and political sphere separate, or else the priests would be exposed to corruption and greed. And so, he signed a pact with a pagan entity to destroy the system. He sent the Romans to destroy Jerusalem in AD 70, and he sent atheists to destroy spirituality. John said in Revelation, "Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird." Revelation chapter 18 verse 2. They're described as birds, probably scavenger birds, because people hated these kinds of animals in ancient Israel. Now, of course, this causes a lot of commotion in society. Overthrowing spiritual and political institutions tends to do that. And indeed, Jesus prophesied that the decline of spirituality would be accompanied by a lot of wars in the early 20th century. "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, and pestilences, and earthquakes in divers places." Matthew chapter 24 verses 6 to 7. After all this commotion is over, these spiritual rulers will lose the power they formerly held in society. Jesus also said, "And the stars of heaven shall fall, and the powers that are in heaven shall be shaken." Mark chapter 13 verse 25. The powers of heaven are all those kings who claim to be God's representatives on earth. Not too many kings nowadays go about saying God is the one who makes them make decisions, if their constitutions even let them make political decisions to begin with. And now that these leaders can't force everyone to believe in God, belief in God has plummeted in the last century. Again, Jesus told us, "And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold." Matthew chapter 24 verse 12. He's referring, of course, to the love of God, or belief in him. So, is this how Christianity ends? People just gradually grow out of it? The king of the north conquers it, and he and God shake hands on a job well done? Well, the Bible says God has other plans. Again, in ancient times, God declared that the king of the north would be conquered just like his spiritual leaders were. He said in Joel, "But I will remove far off from you the northern army, and will drive him into a land barren and desolate, with his face toward the east sea, and his hinder part toward the utmost sea. And his stink shall come up, and his ill savour shall come up, because he hath done great things. Joel chapter 2 verse 20. Great things as in, wow, I didn't even know someone could kidnap so many people all at once. I'm shocked and impressed at the same time. And God has to go after the king of the north because he can't let Christianity be completely destroyed. Jesus said, "And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened." Matthew chapter 24 verse 22. By the time the king of the north has been conquered, a small remnant of non-denominational Christians will come out of hiding from the mountains in the lands of the king of the north. They interpreted the abomination of desolation of Matthew chapter 24 verses 15 to 17 as secularity coming to conquer institutional Christianity, and they've separated themselves from major denominations as a result. Hence, they've fled to the mountains. That's another reason God signed a pact with the king of the north. He wants to know which Christians will flee and which ones will simply submit to pagan leadership. He's like a farmer picking out good crops from bad ones, according to Matthew chapter 13 verses 24 to 30. Once he's spotted these holdouts, he will bring them out of their metaphorical mountains and lead them to the kingdom he's built to replace the old renegade province. He said in Isaiah, "And it shall come to pass in the last days, that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it." Isaiah chapter 2 verse 2. All nations refers to the remnant, as in Isaiah chapter 11 verse 16, who will return from the northern lands to Mount Zion. In this new kingdom, people won't need pastors to teach them about God, because God will be able to reveal himself to them directly, as Jeremiah prophesied in Jeremiah chapter 31 verses 31 to 34. And to conclude this epic, Jeremiah also wrote, "In those days the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel, and they shall come together out of the land of the north to the land that I have given for an inheritance unto your fathers." Jeremiah chapter 16 verse 15. And that is where I'm going to stop in describing the king of the north from Daniel's prophecy in Daniel chapter 11. Goodbye everyone.